Laura here from Sepsis Education. Hope everybody's doing well. Today we're going to be talking about what are the signs and symptoms of post-sepsis syndrome, or PSS as what it's otherwise known as. And a lot of people don't know about post-sepsis syndrome. I know I didn't, and because there's such a broad spectrum of physical and psychological issues, I thought I was going mad. I thought I was going insane. And it's not talked about. When I was talking to my sister-in-law about it, she's a nurse. Well, she is now. At the time she was a student nurse. And she was like, what? Post-sepsis syndrome? I've never heard of it. She went back to uni. None of her lecturers had heard of it. And this is why it's really difficult, because sepsis affects 30 million people a year. 11 million of those, need to put my teeth in there, don't I? 11 million of them will unfortunately no longer be with us. But 40% of those 19 million that survive, which is 7.6 million people, will have lasting effects, be it psychological or physiological. Okay, so I'm going to talk about a bit of my story after, but first of all we're going to go into what it is. So you've got your physical aspects, you've got your edema, so you've got your swelling, and so that's usually at the site of infection that you had. Poor temperature regulation. Now this is the one that is really bizarre, because you are either sweating excessively or so incredibly cold that you can't get warm. So literally you are either boiling hot or absolutely freezing cold. There is no in between. It's like going through the menopause, where when it comes to the extreme sweating, it's just like, oh my goodness, what? Hair loss, and usually that's about a month after. The same with really brittle nails and really flaky skin. And I don't know if I've actually told you this before, but I used to be a beauty and massage therapist. And the one thing, like, a lot of people are like, it's really unusual, and why is it about 30 days after? And if you go into the beauty aspect, like if ever you're using a cream, right, this is a really bizarre one. If ever you're using a cream on your skin or a new cleanser and toner, use it for 30 days, because it takes that long to go down and then come back up, because that's all to do with the skin regeneration. And so I'm thinking that's why at that point it's like the really dry, flaky skin and nails, and the hair loss as well. But there's still research in that going on. There's a massive change of taste, muscle weakness, but muscle weakness goes along with if you've been intubated, you've been in a coma, all of this kind of stuff, and the fact that you have not got enough energy. So fatigue is a massive one. Joint and muscle pain, and if you imagine you've been out of it for either a week going into months, of course there's going to be muscle pain, because you are going to be putting more pressure on the joints that you haven't actually been doing in a long time. Acute kidney injury. So with the fact that when you have sepsis, your blood pressure goes so incredibly low, you can then get the tissue damage, but you can get kidney failure, and that is to do with the acute kidney injury. And so you find that a lot of people are on dialysis, and some people it's short term, some people it's not. Some people it is for the rest of their life, because they have had their kidneys injured that much due to sepsis. And then breathlessness. And if you think of it, you are going to be really tired because your muscles are weak, you've got atrophy, you've got joint pain, you're actually holding your body up, which you haven't been doing. So breathlessness because you're absolutely knackered. And then you've got neuropathy. So peripheral neuropathy, what that means is loss of sensation in your hands, your feet, all of that kind of stuff. And that goes with the fact that when we have the sepsis, our blood gets quite sticky. And so there's less oxygen getting down to the peripheries, so the ends of your end of your fingers, your toes. And so with that, your nerve endings aren't going to be getting as much oxygen, so that way you will then get peripheral neuropathy. Repeated infections, and that can be from the original infection site. For me, I had it for about 3 months, whereas it can be repeated infection. But the bit that is the most difficult, I think, is the psychological aspects. Because of PTSD, you've got the flashbacks, you've got nightmares, you've got depression. Short-term memory loss is an absolute nightmare, especially when you're working in healthcare, for me, because writing down your notes, awesome, not easy. Then you've got your stress and anxiety and fear that you're going to have a relapse every time that you're sick. So those are actually the reasons, the actual broad spectrum of things. So you can imagine why I thought I was going insane. Like, I remember sitting in the clinic writing my notes, crying because I couldn't remember what I'd done on a particular patient. But being so cold that I had a vest on, my tunic, a blanket round me, a second blanket, a hoodie and a coat. And I was still shaking because I was that cold. And with the short-term memory loss, when you've got a job like I've got, you've got the stress and anxiety for not being able to do your notes and actually not being able to do the things that you're meant to be doing. But for me, I actually found the insomnia to be horrendous. But that was because, although I was so excessively tired, throughout the day I was having naps and then I couldn't sleep at night. But when I was having a long sleep, I was then getting flashbacks and nightmares about being back in recovery. And this actually got me into a really downward spiral. And to the point where I actually had to go for CBT. I was having the CBD oil and tablets, and I was really doing everything that I could to actually get my mental health back, and it didn't get better until I went for CBT. However, I did one day in a nursing home this week, and because I hadn't been working for so long because of being shielding, because this is 2020 obviously, I actually had a flashback of me being back in A&E with an oxygen mask on, and that's something that I've never had before, and it was just like, what? Because I've been feeling very anxious about going back to work, but I know that it's something I need to do, and need to put my big girl pants on, and if need be, go back to CBT. When I know that I'm extremely lucky. I didn't have any atrophy, although I had to have assault team to help me learn how to eat and drink again, I know that I am one of the really lucky ones. But when you have nightmares and waking up, hearing it's a good job that her mum and dad brought her into the hospital, because if they'd waited for the ambulance, she wouldn't be here. When you have those nightmares almost all the time, it means that you don't want to go to sleep. And so this is why for me the insomnia was so bad, because I didn't want to go to sleep. But it was also the fact that because I was so tired, I was then getting brain fog, and I'm getting that again. And I always find that when I'm stressed, it then actually triggers the physical effects. So I'm finding I'm getting muscle pain a lot now. Not muscle weakness, but muscle and joint pain again. But the weirdest one for me, I think, was the change of taste. And I'm a tea addict. I'm the British, like so British when it comes to my tea. I can't go a day without 3 or 4 cups of tea. It's always weak, but that's how I like my cup of tea. But after having sepsis, I found that I couldn't drink tea. I didn't like tea. Chocolate was a weird one, because I used to be a chocoholic, and then I've now become more of a savoury person. But I've come to like chocolate again, but not to the same extent, thank goodness. But I get cold so easily, and even to this day, although you probably wouldn't be able to see, for me, I always find that the right side of my neck is that much more swollen than my left, and that's because that's where I had the drains put in. And I know that I'm getting into personal stuff now, which is really stupid, really silly. But I think that it's something really important for you guys to know about me and why this has been so important to me. It's basically because I know that I survived for a reason. And if I can help save somebody's life when it comes to the signs and symptoms of sepsis, which are down below, by the way, if you look in the notes, or knowing the signs and symptoms of post-sepsis syndrome, which I'm also going to put in the notes as well, I know that I survived for a reason. And hence this is why the online course, the YouTube channel, and now the podcast. And I hope you enjoy the podcast, by the way. If you like the video, please like, subscribe and share, as I said before, and leave a comment. And also come and find me on Instagram. I'm constantly on there. And that is laurawilliams.sepsiseducator. I'll also put that in the notes as well. And I will see you next week. Also, if you've got any requests about what you want me to be doing on this channel when it comes to sepsis awareness or post-sepsis syndrome awareness, please let me know and I will do something for you. Right, take care guys, bye.